Um, would you take a person's place in hell if you could? Or that was the basics of the question. I'm not, word for word these questions. If I was given the chance, would I take a person's place in hell? Well, thankfully, this question is a miss because I can't take a person's place in hell. The only person that could is Jesus Christ. And what you mean by hell, and I think what you have implied you mean by hell is punishment. Jesus Christ did take the punishment because he was the only one eligible. It's funny that Paul actually mentions this thing too. Paul says that if I could, and this is a statement of great love, if I could, I would take on that punishment for people like that, for people that haven't accepted. But Paul immediately says, but I can't, because God hasn't designed it that way. Why make a hypothetical question that has no bearings whatsoever? Well, I understand what you're trying to say. You're trying to say, well, if I answered no to that question, then I would be like a terrible person that wouldn't be willing to actually love someone enough to take their place in hell. And if I were to answer yes, then you would say, well, that's ridiculous. Then hell must not be all that bad or something like that. I understand the trap in the question. However, it's completely irrelevant. And I think that if someone was loving enough to take someone's place in hell, that would be the most respected person. In fact, the Bible says that greater love has no man that he would give his life eternal, or life on this earth for a friend. Jesus did that. He earns respect just in that. And so the answer to the question, if you were to rephrase the question, would someone take someone's place in hell? Jesus did. Okay. Have I ever felt sorry for Satan and the angels who fell? This implies something. First of all, it implies that Satan and the angels have any desire whatsoever to be restored. Satan is running as hard as he can right now against God and running from God. If Satan were given the opportunity for salvation right now, do you think he'd take it? Absolutely not. Satan had the choice in the beginning to either follow God or believe that he could do a better job than God. And he is still running and still trying. And the reason that things are playing out the way they are right now in the world and in the future, according to the book of Revelation, the way that things will play out, is simply because Satan himself won't give up. He won't admit that God is God. And that, to think that, right now that God would save Satan if Satan turned around and asked for forgiveness or whatever, that implies that Satan or any of those angels would actually desire that. They don't. And so, have I ever felt sorry for Satan and his angels? I feel sorry for people who are running away from God. And I feel sorry for them because they don't understand how good the Christian life is. Satan and the angels, again, as I said, the question is a little irrelevant because they have no desire whatsoever. If God offered them complete and full restoration right now, there's no chance that they would accept it. You know that as well as I do. It's just the nature that Satan, the characteristics of Satan, who he is. He is the anti-God. And so that's the answer to that question. Again, let me pause right here because that's the answer to question, I think number 7 or something like that. And a lot of these questions probably you're saying, well, he's copping out. He's not answering them fully. That's because the questions themselves aren't complete. They show lack of understanding about the subject of the questions. And I would welcome some refutation or actually, refuting these questions by saying, well, this is what I actually think about Satan and the angels question or something like that. And try to tell me why that answer doesn't fully answer it or any of the other answers. I welcome that. because I am a question answerer, and I really desire to answer questions. And so if any more questions pop in my head, I want to find out the answers. So please feel free to refute those. According to the Bible, non-believers and homosexuals are an abomination. And according to your question, you want us to pick one group without deciding, or without wavering or whatever. One group, non-believers or homosexuals, that I would see abolished. Can I say neither? Because I love all people. That's not according to myself. That's according to what God has done for me. I love all people. I love every homosexual. Homosexuality is a sin. It's not a characteristic of a human being. It's a choice. And, I know that a lot of people disagree with that, but it's scientific. There is no homosexual gene. It's like alcoholism. There are people who have tendencies toward it. However, it is a choice, just like alcoholism. People can get caught up in it, and just as in any other sin. And this question, non-believers, homosexuals, liars, murderers, those who covet, adulterers, cheaters, all these things, they're all under the same category. Sinners. I am one. In fact, I'm a terrible one. And in fact, according to the world's, standards, if you were to weigh my good deeds and bad deeds, my bad deeds would far, far outweigh my good. That's the great story of the gospel. Not only are non-believers and homosexuals an abomination before God, so are liars, so are cheaters, so are those who gossip. All these things, we can't stand before holy God and claim righteousness when we're not righteous. And that's the glory, the wonderful thing about the gospel. That's what makes the gospel the greatest story ever told. These unbelievable underdogs, these people who have committed terrible homosexual sin, who have committed heterosexual sins, pedophiles, rapists, all kinds of liars, even people such as Ted Bundy, murderers, mass murderers, they all have the chance to come to Christ. You remember the thief on the cross. Now, the Bible doesn't go into explanation about what the thief had actually done, but obviously he had done something good enough to deserve death, or good enough or bad enough, depending on what you want to say about that. But obviously, if he is, saved right there at that moment when he says, I know you, and I just want you to remember me in paradise. And Jesus looks at him and says, I tell you what, today you're going to be in paradise with me. Why? Because that thief believed in Jesus. He believed he was who he said he was. He believed that he did not deserve to be on that cross, unlike himself, who did deserve to be on that cross. And so, if that's an example. Even Paul, the great apostle Paul, if you know anything about his story, beforehand, he was Saul of Tarsus. He changed his name after he became a Christian. He was a Christian murderer. Now, I'll tell you that is probably a worse sin in anyone's eyes, as far as according to God, than homosexuality or non-believers. If you kill Christians, and yet Christ came to him and said, why are you persecuting me and those who follow me? Change your life. And Paul ended up being one of the great apostles, one of the great cornerstones of the Christian faith. So, absolutely, I wouldn't abolish either, because it would be like the sinner trying to abolish the sinner for what he's done, the liar trying to catch the liar in a lie. I have no right to judge. God is a judge. And so those who are abomination before God, including me before I was saved, they all deserve to be permanently wiped out. But I love both, and so does God. And all either group would have to do is come to Christ for salvation.